The bids are in. The gavel's dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast dedicated to all things wine value, wine retail, wine auctions, and just wine. My name is Jeff McGurn on WineBid's marketing team. With me, as always, is Paul, the Marshal of Madeira Walker. That's right. Paul is our wine expert and known the world around as the Marshal of Madeira. One of these days, you're going to have to tell me how you got that moniker, Paul, because it is a fantastic one. But alas, we don't have time to go into that now. We don't have time to go into that right now, Paul. We don't have time. Here's what we do have time for. We have time to do an auction recap and talk about everything that happened this auction that ended last night, March 10th, 2024, all the movement we've been seeing. Let's jump right into it, okay?
Please do that, yes. Yeah. Actually, I did want to say, on behalf of the whole company, apologies for the errors that happened last night at the close of the auction. There was a technical issue, and hopefully it will not happen again. But I did want to say that, apologies for that happening to any of the robots who may have been trying to place bids and or overtime bidding at the end of the auction. Because
any of the robots listening to this podcast who also wanted to place bids, we sincerely apologize that your internal programming and process
was foiled by a technical issue. But yeah, hopefully that will not happen again. It was very frustrating for everyone, not just bidders, but people at WineBid too. So anyways.
Yes. So as you know, I am really good at providing investment advice in hindsight.
Yeah, Jeff is our resident wine investment expert.
That's right.
Yeah. He's the only expert here in the podcast.
Yeah. If you would have bought something years ago, I'm able to tell you that you would have been able to make money today. And man, that Keller Scheurebe Kabinett number 13, we had 3 of those. 8 bids took them from $25 to $110.
I have a feeling that like the consignor was just messing with people when they were like, "Yeah, let's start this at $25.
Start it and
see what happens. Let's give it a shot."
Yes, at $1. See how crazy people go.
I mean, anything with the word Keller in it is going to go for no less than 50, much less,
25. I
mean, $25 for gosh sakes.
That was big movement. Another one that was a big mover was the 17 Pierre-Eve Colomeret. Saint-Aubin, Premier Cru Homage.
Yeah. I'm getting more confused about these wines. Like we've obviously talked about Colomeret forever. The Merceaus are great, blah, blah, blah. But for some reason, now the Saint-Aubin wines are starting to cost more than wines from Chassagne or even Merceau in certain cases. And this is a good example, $145 for a Saint-Aubin. I mean, again, we kind of mentioned this in the recap last week. We were talking about a 17 white from Fontaine Gagnard, I think. But, and then it started at under 100 and then hammered it just over 100. But this was almost double, right? Well, not quite. 80 to 145. But
80 to 140, almost double. I mean,
really impressive.
A few more dollars. And
yeah, I mean, that's a big jump. And I think we've sold this wine. Yeah, we've sold it before only once, not too long ago. Well, a couple of years ago for $72. So, these have just like gone way up in value in just the last year or so, which is pretty wild. It's a big one.
Just a lot of craziness there. Look, there's a lot of stuff at the lower end of the market. I thought it was interesting, this Tenuta 2021 San Guido.
The Guidalberto. Yeah, it's like the third label.
It's like the third label, I think. And it's some bids are about $40 to like $48, right? So even some movement there.
That wine, I think, is actually quite a bit more expensive retail. I noticed this was on a shelf somewhere recently. I want to say actually in like a higher end supermarket, and I think it was about $50 or $60. It's not cheap.
I mean, I'm seeing like anywhere from $50 to $60, 50 to 70.
So 48 plus buyer's commission. That's still not terrible out the door.
No, that's not bad.
It's hard to find too. That's not an easy one to find.
We had this 2018 Castello di Monsanto Chianti Classico Reserva. 2 of them. That's $25 to $4.
Is bizarre to me. Because that wine is not hard to find. So that seems strange.
It just
sold it just sold for, I think, $25 hammer just in recent auctions. So why would it get bid up to, I don't understand that, from 25 to 44. It doesn't make sense.
We have this 15 Emidio Pepe.
Yeah, that's a rare one.
Two of those, 6 bids from 90 to 210.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising, actually. It's great stuff. I want to say that Trebbiano is harder to find than the Montepulciano Rosso, the red wine, and it's very, very good. They also last a long time. You generally see older examples. I think there's actually some of the Rosso in this week, but yeah, that's a rare one.
But here's the thing. So this sold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 times in 2023 throughout the year. Well, I mean, it sold in a bunch in June and a bunch.
Yeah, it looks like August. One client had a bunch of it in June.
But it was like 75 to 95, and it ended the year. The last we saw it in 2023 was $81.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. It's strange that it was available in 1 week in June for 75 consistently, and then next week it got bid up like multiple increments to $95. That doesn't make sense in the first place. And then it dropped again to 80 in later in the year. You're right. This is a strange one.
Calling the people who purchased the case of that last year, if you want to more than double your money, here's your opportunity. You can sell it right now for $210 a bottle. Woo!
It's funny too that it was for sale 2 years prior for the same price, right? It was for sale in 2021 at 75, and then 2023 it didn't go up at all until later in the year, and then that's a weird one.
So here's another one that I feel like more than a year ago we would see all the time with a ton of bids, and I feel like we haven't seen as much action on this, but 2010 Ganevat Côtes de Jura Sous La Roche Plein Sud, 6 bids from 70 to 165.
Yeah, that's a big jump there.
That's a massive jump. I mean, look, we know Ganevat it's super rare, right? But in the last time we sold this bottle was in 2014 for $60.
Almost 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years ago.
That's pretty amazing, actually, that we haven't seen it since. There were, I think, 4 or 5 other whites in last week, but they were younger. They were like 15s and 13s or something. So yeah, this 10 red Sous La Roche Plein Sud is, I'm sure it's, among the red wines, it's also probably quite hard to find, especially if we haven't sold it in 10 years. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
And then the last one before I'll take us over to the heavy hitters and weekly winners. This 1984 Groth Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon started at 115, hammers at 205 after 6 bids. I thought that was interesting to see too. I mean, obviously, this is a birth year purchase, would be my guess, right? Somebody knows somebody who's turning 40 this year.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that makes me think that it's getting more attention now than before is that the 85 was a legendary wine. I think it was the first wine from the US that got 100 points from Parker or something like that. But anyway, 84 seemed comparatively cheap, next to the 85. And I think it's just getting more and more rare and harder to replace these older, especially 80s Groth Reserves. They're great wines, actually.
But all that being true, in November of 2020, it sold for 110. In April of 2023, it sold for 110. In September of 2023, it sold for 120. We're like 6 months later, not even 6 months later, and it's selling for almost double.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big jump, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. And just kind of looking at the bidding, it looks like there was a flurry of activity, not for a few days. Like it got a couple bids earlier on. Looks like earlier on in the week, and then later in the week there was more action, and it looks like somebody just really wanted it at the end there. So yeah, it's a case, I think, of rarity in a bidding war as well. Because you're right. Yeah, it was in a little bit of both. Last September for 120. Yeah, and then repeatedly before that, not much less. So
let's move over to our heavy hitters at the top of the market. Not surprisingly, 2019 Screaming Eagle Sauvignon Blanc. I feel like we haven't seen Screaming Eagle Sauvignon Blanc in a minute. I mean, maybe we have. It's just
Well, it's been an auction. I think people maybe, got a little scared of how high the prices were getting. And so maybe they kind of backed off. But 19, I think also is what, two or three releases out. Whereas the ones that we were seeing getting, crazy hammers, like $4,000 a piece. I think that was like the inaugural vintage. I can't remember if it was 2010 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, 19 for 64.80, a 3-pack. I mean, that's comparable to the red, right? It's not going bonkers like some of the older vintages of the white. So
1999 Domaine Marmigny-Conti Richebourg 4100. 2010 Domaine AF Gross Richebourg 6-bottle lot OWC for 3,900.
Yeah, that was a really nice lot. I don't recall seeing AF Grow Richebourg in 6-packs. I don't think. Well, the 10 I think we've ever sold before, but yeah, that's a really nice set.
It's a really nice set.
It's great wine.
We've got the 99 DRC Grands Echezot 3560, 96 Latache 3525, 05 Richebourg 3340, 95 Latache 3300, and then one that I was like, God, I would love to get this one. 97 Diamond Creek Lake Vineyard 5 liter for 3150. I'll bet that stuff is just amazing right now. It's a cool bottle. That's
part of the big collection of Diamond Creek we were promoting last week, and amazing wines. A little surprising that something like this didn't get bid up more, but that's an interesting bottle too, because it's painted. And I think we've sold these actually in the past, and I think that they actually came in this really interesting original like metal case or something. There aren't that many of them, but yeah, it is an amazing wine. It's an amazing bottle.
All right, Paul. So let's talk some weekly winners. Obviously, there were some records set by, not surprisingly, Diamond Creek. I mean, we had just a glut of Diamond Creek in auction. That's
one way to put it.
So much, like a flood, a torrent of Diamond Creek.
Amazing collection of Diamond Creek.
An amazing collection of Diamond
That's what I would say.
Yeah, well, you're just not very creative. 1978, Diamond Creek Gravelly Meadow sold for $905, and
yeah, that's a impressive number for a non-lake designated Diamond Creek wine, because I mean there's a lot of heavy hitter 78 Cabernets out there, but 905 that's a big number. And so could see where that's probably going in the next, 5 to 10 years. But
let's talk lake. 84 lake for 1,050.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, because I think I'll double check, but that makes sense, right? Great mid 80s vintage, but there was a mag of 90. Was it 91? Maybe that sold. Also, I didn't see what the hammer was, but that seemed like a relative deal in comparison to the 84 for 1,050. I think the mag was like 1,300, and I believe it was from 1991 as well. But anyway, I've got to look that up. But yeah, needless to say, the 16 and the 18 lakes, 680 and 850 respectively, serious hammers for that wine.
Very serious hammers for
75 Red Rock Terrace for 500 again. A non-lake designated wine from the 70s for 500 or more is pretty crazy to me, but that's where that's where they're going. And those wines also are really, really good. And they do have the stuffing to last for a long, long time. So I'm sure they're phenomenal.
Getting away from Diamond Creek for a second, did you see this 02 100-acre Kaylee Morgan Vineyard Cab mag sold for 1,100? Right, which is
that's pretty wild. Again, that's a rare one because it's over 20 years old, so it's not easy to find 20 plus year old 100-acre. I think most of it probably got drunk years ago, but that's impressive. That's impressive. And large formats from back then too, I think, were pretty few and far between. If you pardon the pun, I think that's a 100-acre label, few and far between.
96 Graveau Echezot for 475. That's a high as far as we could tell. 03 Cru Clos de Mesnil, 1175. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big number for sure. That's serious, serious price for serious wine.
And then another one that I thought was interesting was this 97 Grange for 595. That's the second highest hammer in WineBid history. Only one hammer that we saw in 2021 was at 410. So man, I feel like Grange is holding value, and I feel like Henschke Hill of Grace is holding value too, even while we see some other regions, some of the top producers start to come down a bit. There seems to be value held in Australia.
No, that's true. It's definitely, we see it pop up on our weekly records or weekly, auction records, weekly winners, whatever you want to call it, fairly often these days, and not terrible. I mean, a 97 is not an old Grange either. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
from the 80s and 70s and stuff, but 97 is just feels young to me for Grange, especially because they last so long. And I think 98 too was quite a bit superior as far as vintages are concerned, and I don't think goes for a whole lot more than that. So yeah, they're going up in value for sure.
I mean, they're starting to get to the point where they're close to the retail price of Grange. But part of me wonders if Grange will actually get to the point where, it's more money than you can buy it for at like the older vintages are more than you can buy it for at retail. We're not there yet, but it feels like there. And then this 93 Giacomo Quintana Barolo Reserva Monfortino, 925, tied with a previous high that we had in 2021. I thought that was really interesting. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap this thing up?
No, I think, that's about it. I know we've talked about a bunch of things that got a lot of bids last week. It was a really exciting auction for sure. And a lot of rarities. That Diamond Creek collection was something else. But no, I mean, I think that pretty much wraps it up. There was an 01 Gaia, San Lorenzo hammered at 415 was another high for us. Oh, yeah, and the Cedric Bouchard wines, should mention that as well. A pair of 08s, which, they got pushed way up. I think one of them started at, I don't know, it was like 225 or something, got bid up to 400. So, those are just quite rare at this point. Anything from, mid 2000s from Cedric Bouchard is not going to be easy to replace. So that was pretty much it for me.
There's one other thing that I want to mention before we wrap up. We're doing something very special. I think this week, and maybe even now from here on out, we're going to be giving away WineBid wallet credits. That's right. We're just giving them away because we're generous, right? Paul and I are so appreciative of the bots that listen to this podcast that we want those bots to be able to make purchases. And so we want to reward them for putting up with us week after week. So if you're listening to this podcast and you send an email to marketing@winebid.com with Paul's nickname somewhere in that email, right? You say, hey, Paul's nickname is, what is your nickname, Paul?
You already forgot your own.
No, it's the Marshal of Madeira. Yeah. I wanted to see if you remembered.
I knew it was Marshall. I was like, Marshall Madeira? That sounds right. Okay.
Send it to us with either your WineBid username, the email address you use, just so we know who we can add some WineBid wallet credit to. And that's all you have to do. You just shoot us an email, listen to this podcast, figure out what Paul's nickname is, shoot us an email, and you're going to get some WineBid wallet credit. And with that, this has been Jeff McGurn and Paul Walker wishing you happy bidding and cheers.
Cheers.